So my name is UMKC. The two other members of my group are Harvey Shahan and Pat McNamara. The goal of our project today is to take an in-depth look into employee motivation, what it is, how it works, and what are the benefits of it. And so what is employee motivation? So when we talk about employee motivation, we're talking about factors that encourage employees to do a good job, factors that cause them to work hard towards their goals. Employee motivation is very important. It's important in regards to productivity, it's important in regards to efficiency. Productivity and efficiency together make for a positive work environment and a lot of goals that are going to be met. And so what did we find? We found 4 top motivators that really motivate employees, and these are giving meaning to work, appreciation, camaraderie, and we took an in-depth look into money. Money seems like it would be an obvious motivator for employees, but is it really? And so next, Harvey is going to come up and take a little bit more in-depth look here.
Hello. So today I'm going to show you some brief findings by Dan Ariely of Stanford and what he thought meaning of work means to you. So first of all, he created this experiment with the, it's called the Lego problem. In this, what he did was, he divided the group in 2 parts. Now, one group had to build, and he offered them, okay, I'll give you $3 if you want to build a Lego for me out of these pieces. And then he gave them the pieces. And then in as soon as they were done, he gave them, okay, for 30 cents less, would you do the same thing for me? And they would say, okay, fine. But every time in the first group, he would say, okay, I'll take this. And then he will put them in the dashboard. But in the second group, what he did differently was he would dismantle it or break it in front of their eyes. And then he would be like, okay. So what he found was the group that was doing the same thing in the first time, that group had built actually 11 Legos. And the second group only built 7. And now this is not a multi-million-dollar industry problem or a world-changing problem. It had not a great impact of a meaning. It had a very simple meaning. But when you break something in front of someone's eye, they start losing the interest. So this was a really small but a huge impact when you see that even a small thing like this has a huge meaning of work. In the second slide, I'm going to talk about the appreciation. Okay, now then Ariely took this to another level. What he did this time was he divided the groups in 3 parts. Now in 3 groups, he would give a piece of paper, and this handout will have the random numbers, and what they had to do was very simple, just find the pair of letters that were the same, and then he would see the results. Now first group that in the first group what he did was, as soon as the group finishes the processing, he will say, okay, show me the sheet, and he will take the sheet and he will say, okay, and then he will put it in the dashboard. Now then he will ask them again, okay, would you do this for 30 cents less? And they will say, okay, why not? And then go on forth and forever. And then in the second group, he did something new. Now he will take the sheet of paper and he will not look at it, he will not see anything, and he will just put it, and nothing at all. And he will not acknowledge what happened to it. And then in the final group, what he did was, he will just take the sheet of paper and he will shred it in front of their eyes. Now there's good news and a bad news. The good news is, as you might have expected, the group that was acknowledged that, okay, very simple and very small effort, but this group performed the best and it was remarkable. But at the same time, another group, the bad news is that even if you did not shred it, if you did not even acknowledge it, it had the same effect. So most of our work environment problems are this. What science knows and what business does is quite the opposite. You have to acknowledge, if somebody does something good, you have to acknowledge it. And this is what we call the appreciation and the effect of The next slide is going to be presented by my friend Bet, and have an overview.
Okay, so we found that the third primary motivating factor for employees on the job was camaraderie. And this was according to a Forbes study that actually said that 20%, which was the highest number in their study, said that camaraderie was what motivated them the most. So 1 out of every 5 people, and the next highest was something around 17%, and then most of the others were down near the single digits. So this was, by a decent margin, the #1 motivating factor for employees. And by camaraderie, we're basically talking about peer influence, peer relationships, really the atmosphere that you're working in and the people you're working with. So, for example, I want to talk about peer influence. If you're working with people who are constantly arriving late, not getting work done, then you're really going to not have much motivation yourself, and you might steep into those same habits. But if you're working with people who are always on time, they're always striving to do the best they can, they're always focused on the task at hand, then you're going to have that motivation as well. And then another aspect of camaraderie is peer relationships. If you don't get along with people you're working with, or even if you get along but you don't really relate to them well, and you can't talk to them, you can't spend time with them, you can't hang out with them on a weekend, then you might not be as motivated to go to work the next day because you're not excited about the people that you'll be seeing. But if you've got good work relationships, doesn't need to be best friends, but as long as you relate to the people you're working with, you spend a little bit of time with them, you chat with them when you get a chance to. If you have those types of work relationships, then you'll really look forward to going to work, and when you're at work, you'll be more motivated to do the things that you need to do. And then a third aspect of camaraderie is just the overall atmosphere of your work environment. Is it a place you like to go to? Do you like the culture? Do you like just the overall atmosphere of your work environment? So camaraderie, according to this Forbes study, was rated as the #1 employee motivator. And now I'm going to talk about the fourth primary employee motivator, which was rewards. And there's 2 types of rewards we're going to focus on here, and one of them was non-financial. And for non-financial rewards, we're really talking about things like being given more responsibility at work, being asked to train a new employee, being asked to do things that the managers wouldn't ask of employees who aren't really pulling their weight at work. And we found that non-financial rewards were actually a huge motivator for employees. And then the other type of reward I'm going to focus on here is financial rewards. By this, we're talking how good your salary is. We're talking bonuses, promotions that involve monetary raises or salary raises. And what we actually found here was there's an interesting game or challenge called the candle game. And what it involves is they're in a room with just a basic wall, and they're given a candle, a box of matches, and a box of nails or tacks. And they're asked to place the candle onto the wall without having it drip onto the table below. And the people who were given a chance to earn money if they got this right they had a narrow focus and didn't really have much success working at it. But the people who weren't offered any financial reward opened their mind and were more creative because they didn't have that narrow focus of the monetary reward, and they were more creative, and they actually were more successful in solving this issue. So what we found is that money might not be as big of a motivator as you would think. And there was actually a Forbes study that said, that same Forbes study I mentioned earlier said monetary benefits were only 7%, whereas what I mentioned about camaraderie was 20% said that as their top motivator. And there was actually a study on a website, PR Newswire, that said that 70% of people mentioned that the top reward that they ever got at work, the top recognition, was a non-financial one. And then another Forbes article stated that too much pay can actually lead to worse performance, because if you feel so, you're not really on edge. If you get paid too much, you just feel content, and then you don't have any motivation to really work and strive towards your goals. So what we found is that money is not really a motivating factor for the most part, but there are a few situations where it can be. And what we found, according to NBRII.com, is that there are 4 situations that have to occur for money to be a motivating factor. Those are that money must be important to the employee employee must perceive that money as a direct reward of their actions. In other words, they didn't just happen to get promoted or raised, they got it because of an action they took, or obviously commission jobs would be sort of along those lines. And then the marginal increase in pay has to be significant to the employee. And finally, management must have discretion to award money to higher performing employees. So really what we found is that there are a few situations where money is a motivator, but for the most part, it's not really that significant compared to what you would think. And finally, I'm going to pass it back to Ali to conclude for us.
So, what did we find here from our research? That the top motivators are giving meaning to work, also showing appreciation, giving non-financial rewards, and also camaraderie, the environment in which the employees are given to work. What often doesn't work are monetary rewards. Many people think that money is a driving factor, but as Pat spoke about in depth, it is not the top motivator as far as an effective motivation tool for everyday work.